show, The Outlander. That's where I answer your emails, take your calls, and interview some intriguing guests from around the globe. Just go to irnchat.com to chat, interact, and listen live to The Outlander Show. And the archives are also available on InceptionRadioNetwork.com. Jumping right on in to some UFO reports. This first one is a black triangle sighting in Somerville, Alabama. This occurred January 16th, 2018. In brief, the witness states, triangular shape. 3 lights blinking with 4th red light. Low flying. Very quiet. In more detail, the witness goes on, my girlfriend and I had pulled into her driveway and talked for about 20 minutes. I noticed a very bright, flickering light in the southeastern part of the sky, fairly far away, about 2 miles. We looked at it a little more and we noticed it stopped flickering. It stayed there in the same spot for another minute or two. We got out of the car and continued to look at it. I told my girlfriend I thought it was Venus because it was bigger and brighter than anything else in the sky, but I was confused because I know Venus couldn't be that close to the horizon. We continued to look at it more, and it started to move in our direction very quickly, and like it hasn't moved before. My girlfriend was kind of freaking out. Once it got closer, it moved in our direction and flew over the neighbor's house, right in front of us in a straight path the whole time. We could only see the 3 lights it had given a triangular shape. It had a white and red blinking light as well. It moved very quietly, making little sound. The creepiest part about it is how low it flew. It was only maybe 200 feet above us. It flew not very high at all, which made the fact that it being so quiet was also very weird. No pilot would fly that low in this mountainous area at night. That's insane! It continued on in the northwest direction and flew over onto the mountain overhead, dodging the mountain itself by making slight turns. It looked like it could have landed on that mountain. I'm not sure if it did or could. I believe it was a man-made plane of some kind because of the red flashing light being similar to the ones on real planes, but it has to be some secret military plane or something because this plane can create an extreme amount of light from miles away. Possibly stay in one place, fly very low, fly very quietly, and maneuver through mountains at night. I have a video showing the object flying by. It's hard to tell in the video how far or big it was, but I didn't zoom in at all. It was close enough to shoot with a BB gun. Ooh. And it really wasn't that big, just the size of a small plane, at least what we could tell. At the end, the lights get kind of blurry because we are in a heavily wooded area, and it's flying right in the little valley behind the trees. I wish I could have gotten the whole thing. I just can't really explain what it really was. Me neither. All right. This next one, ooh, it's an alien encounter. Hoo-hoo! Ooh, this is a blast from the past. Fort Lupton, Colorado. This occurred June 1st, 1986. Wow. In brief, the witness just says the word entity. In tons more detail, the witness states, I was sleeping on the couch at my parents' house. I was 20 years old when I noticed the light outside the window behind the couch. I looked out the window, and approximately 200 feet from the window, on the open grass, on a concrete basketball court, I saw approximately 4 feet off the ground a bright white light, which I later decided was a rip in space. That's the only way I can describe it. This bright light or hole, which was probably 3 or 4 feet in diameter, I saw 3 to 5 aliens, or whatever you want to call them, exit out of the hole. Somehow I knew that they were going to come over to where I was, and this terrified me. I did not actually see them walk from the basketball court and over the lawn to the window, which was approximately a foot and a half from my body. So it's the couch between me and the window. On the outside of the window, three is what I remember. Three of the gray aliens were staring down at me. I tried to move, but my entire body was not responding, and I was frozen. Frozen's probably the wrong word. It was like I was a quadriplegic or something. The only thing that I could move was my eyelids and my eyes, so I could look over and see them staring down at me. Their faces were approximately 3 feet at the most away from mine, still looking through the window directly into my face. I was fully awake, and this continued for, I'm guessing, somewhere between 15 minutes and a half an hour. I know that seems like a big variance for one who was describing something that occurred when they were completely awake, but it was a terrifying experience, and I suspect a minute may have lasted in my mind forever. Subsequently, I discovered that people had sleep paralysis and described something similar to this. However, this was not sleep paralysis. Yeah, I'm not a fan of that definition either. I was wide awake and aware, and I know what I saw, so the paralysis started sometime after I saw them come out of the light or the basketball court, and I was laying back on the couch, and at some point they paralyzed me. They seemed to enjoy it, and I seemed to be either reading their thoughts or something to know that. Or more correctly, they communicated that to me without speech. Oh, great. Yeah. Well, I know they don't. They love to see people suffer. Other than staring at me, I don't know what else they were trying to accomplish. During this encounter, I was struggling with all of my might to try to move even one little finger. I could feel my body all over. I could not move it. I tried, and I tried, and tried to fight them, to get away from them. I would have went down the hallway to my room and picked out my 243 to blow them away if I could. But I could not move. Then they left. I did not see how they exited, but I imagine it was through the same hole. I have a distinct feeling that this has happened several times and may happen again, but that was the only incident that I remember. Possibly I remember them when I was 5 years old in Missoula, Montana. But that could be just a bad dream. I did tell some family members and a couple of friends about it, but I described it as the worst bad dream ever. But I'm letting you know it was never a dream. I was wide awake and aware. Now, approximately 30 years later, I have the guts to at least report this to you in hopes it may help somebody or you guys with your research. I am mentally stable, and I have managed millions of acres of federal land as the primary land officer. I am a GS 1330 year federal employee with a staff of 30. I'm not some nutcase, and I'm scientifically trained. I have had no mental issues or no drug issues, and I have a very long and responsible career, family life, and I'm letting you know this actually happened. I'm kudos to you. Way to go to take that step forward. So many do not ever. It may have taken you a long time, but you know what? I learned from what you shared, and I know others have learned from what you shared. We have got to kick down these barriers of ridicule. And there's so often people have to put, I'm not an alcoholic, I'm not a drug addict. Look, even if you were, your testimony could stand up in a court of law, more than likely. I mean, come on. Jeez, we'll take the words of convicts and whatnot for jailhouse confessions, but not a responsible federal worker like this. Really? Yeah, that's our government for you. and people in society who don't like to take people's reports seriously. But we have learned they do, don't we? Pentagon, hello. We know you've done more research than just that 5-year Pentagon pet project. Okay, moving on. This next one, oh, it's another alien encounter in Ontario. This took another 30-some years to get out. This is from August 28th, 1984. And in brief, the witness states, I spoke to the then, was abducted and raped. Oh, gosh. Then awoke in the craft, then electronically put back to sleep, then awoke in my car 7 miles away. 12 years later, confronted by men in black. Oh, my gosh. I feel this pain of this person. This is terrible. That's just the title. But they only put a short description for further details. So they go on. If men in black confront me, can I attack them or disable them till police come to help me? If I tell you, they will find me. The one of 2 UFOs of the 3rd kind told me not to tell anyone. After I spoke about my experience and such in general public, Ottawa, Ontario, 2 men in black approached me and asked if I had such an encounter. I just replied, no, and went away from them. I found that as a life-threatening event. If this happens again, I am tempted to attack them. Please contact me before anything else happens. Please help me. Oh, I mean, Men in Black are in Canada, apparently. It just makes me so angry. Really? They get violated, raped, abducted, raped, and then moved away. You guys don't hear about the rape involved in alien abductions very much, but it is highly violating. Male or female, these beings have no limits. So for those who think that alien abductions are something fluffy and they feel special because it happened to them, this is abuse. Abduction, the word abduction, taken against your will. It's not just crazy experiments done on them. Oftentimes it's rape, very sexual, very negative feeling, terrified. And then you get followed up with some creeps in suits who threaten people. They'll threaten you if they don't say it verbally. They'll seem very intimidating, just like this person wants to beat the crap out of them. You have my permission. Beat the crap out of the men in black. You see them again. Just go hog wild on them. Just hog wild. You could hog tie them too. Oh gosh, boy, that would be great. If it isn't Will Smith, beat the crap out of them. All right. Call your friends over so you can really make sure you get them all. A call on Men in Black attack. I tell you, this is such a pain. All right, so this next UFO report. Black Triangle sighting in Reedley, California. This occurred, this is a UFO blast from the past, August 14th, 2008. Triangle object with a reddish-orange colored glowing surface on its trailing edge. In more detail, the witness states, my family of 5 were driving home from our Thursday night Bible study. We were Amish Mennonite, aka conservative Mennonites at the time. He changed. And we stayed until almost 10 p.m. that night. I was driving south on South Buttonwillow Avenue, north of Reedley, as we approached Adams Avenue. We saw a triangle-shaped craft hovering over the house that sits about 200 feet north of the northwest corner of the Buttonwillow-Adams intersection. As we drove closer to the point where the craft was hovering, the craft darted and flew due south, parallel to Buttonwillow Avenue. It moved with great speed and disappeared over the horizon within a second. The height of the craft was just over the power lines. As it flew, it lit up the road that was directly below it in a reddish-orange glow. I did notice a few cars that were heading north pull over to the curb after the craft flew over them. No one heard any sounds from the object. Ooh, wow. All right, this next one is a UFO sighting in St. Charles, Illinois, not far from where I'm at. January 3rd, 2018, I saw a cigar object fly over our building. It had a light at both ends. I've seen one of those, and they are huge. Huge. Just just huge. Okay. And it's true, they have these big like spotlights on either end, and they just move slow and quietly, and you're like, seriously? What? Just cruising by. It's like you could turn your lights off and no one would see you. But no, they turn their lights on. I don't get it. I mean, where they want to see what's going on, they're shining it down below them. All right, moving on. Okay, this is in more detail. My husband and I were looking at our front kitchen window about 9:30 p.m. on the night of January 3rd, 2018. Our window overlooks the covered deck, but we like to watch the planes coming and going into and out of the airports in Chicago. From the side of the window that I was standing, I noticed a bright light and saw a cigar-shaped object with bright lights on the front and back of the object. It moved so fast by the time I told my husband to move over to my side and up, look it, I think they said look up at it, had moved out of sight. It appeared to come from the northwest and headed southeast, out of sight. It made no sound and was a dark metal color with no light between the front and back lights. Fantastic. This next UFO sighting comes from Telford, Pennsylvania. On January 20th, 2018, in brief, the object appeared in my photos at 5:38, then disappears from them by 5:45 p.m. I took my photos with a Sony CyberShot Wi-Fi camera for a car fan page. A beautiful sky sunset was the best background, so I took advantage of the scenery with flash on and off. When I got home to post like normal, I noticed a spot in almost all pictures during a 10-minute period. During that period, geese in a V formation flew by and clouds went by, but this object was unmoved. No matter my ever-changing angles, I looked at these photos closer on a new computer and could see much closer than my phone could show, and my wife and I cannot deny there is definitely a hovering object in the shots. I did post 2 pictures before noticing it. To further check out the photos, I overexposed some and the clouds disappear, but it shows up even more defined. As I stated, there are many pics that can be studied. I didn't know it was there. I normally take many nature and vehicle photos. All right. This next UFO sighting comes from Sheffield, England. This occurred January 20th, 2018. In brief, the witness states solid white blue light shot across the sky. Both car occupants saw and imagined it as so fast. Saw once, not window screen reflection. Okay. In more detail, driving south from York on M1, still light outside, but cars were using headlights as starting to get dark. Southeast of the sky had cloud cover. Southwest was blue sky. Not dark enough to see stars, was about 4:30 p.m. GMT. Both myself and partner see a very bright white blue speck of light shoot across the sky southeast to southwest in front of us. It was faster than a shooting star speed, but as bright and about the same size speck in sky as a star. Must have been below cloud cover, as saw it from left to right in sky, from cloudy sky area through blue sky. Couldn't see any type of trail left behind. Seemed to be traveling at consistent height in sky. I waited until a few cars had gone past with their lights on, and noticing none of their headlights had recreated the light I saw in the sky. I asked my partner if he had seen a bright light shoot across the sky a minute earlier. He was surprised. He had seen it too, and also thought he must have imagined it or would see it again and be able to explain it. Neither of us saw the light again. We agreed it went incredibly fast. Blink and you would have missed it. We couldn't explain what it could be. I am a blinker. I probably would have so missed it. I'm not kidding. I blink, 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 blink. Okay, moving on. Okay, TMI. Next one. UFO sighting in Stephenville, Newfoundland. And lab. Okay, this occurred January 19th, 2018. UFO bright orange silent heading from northeast over ocean to southwest. In more detail, while walking with a friend, she is deaf, we noticed two bright orange lights in the sky about 60 degrees in the sky heading northeast southwest. We were making comments about how low the crescent moon looked in the sky and had taken photos earlier as it was so nice looking. The temperature was around minus 5 degrees Celsius with winds 20 kilometers an hour with some low snow clouds, but generally clear while walking uptown roads covered in snow towards Main Street, Stephenville. The two objects did not seem high in the sky, probably less than 1,500 meters, and were heading northeast to southwest over the Atlantic, a bay to St. George, and maybe a few kilometers away from our point of view. The objects did not have any sound. They did not have any flame or smoke trails visible. The objects were very bright orange, bright colored, and remained bright until they left sight, too far away. I got video of the objects halfway through the sighting. The objects made a fairly uniform flight path, although slowed at different pace, independent of each other, hovered without movement, then continued the flight path. I could hear a propeller plane at the near airport with its engines in idle, whose direction was easily heard as our main street is very close to the tarmac. The lights traveled the visible horizon in about a minute. I lost sight when the lights faded from being too far away. Moving on to some paranormal points, because you know we like to touch on the paranormal as well for this show. This article is entitled Wendigo. Bum, bum, bum. This person describes their paranormal encounter. I grew up in Russia. I didn't know anything about Native American stories. As far as I knew it was the classics. Bigfoot, Mothman, etc. When I turned 20, I moved to Utah to start fresh, so to speak. I remember dating this girl who was Native and telling me about these stories and what to do to protect myself from them, but me being a skeptic ignored it. I bought this property on the outskirts of town near a forest a couple hundred feet around before breaking off into Badlands. I go hunting and wood collecting in these forests all the time. After about a month of living in this house, I started noticing weird prints in the grass and mud, but the thing that got me was it was footprints and handprints. So I shrugged it off thinking it was city kids trying to punk the foreigner. After about 2 weeks later, I started noticing the footprints and such getting closer to the house. So eventually weeks go by with nothing, so I went hunting and killed a deer to feed myself a couple of weeks. That night, all I could smell was just irony coppery smell like blood after it set for a time. My dog I named Kazan. He's an Anatolian shepherd. I've seen this dog kill coyotes and badgers easily. Was sitting in my bed, growling at the window the entire night in the morning. I went outside to see the deer carcass I disposed of was broken. The ribs, legs, bones were just snapped like it was nothing. That day I went to the town's Native Americans and started asking if anyone or thing can do that. They all said nothing. After several weeks went by, I go hunting, but the moment I step in the woods, nothing, dead silence, nothing. Not even birds or insects. I figured it was because I stepped in the woods and were all checking me out after a while. I find a spot in the woods, up a tree, in my stand. Still nothing but silence. But this time, the overwhelming smell of iron again, where I was almost gagging about 30 yards to my left. I see an object cruising at a good speed. Then it comes to a dead stop and stands up, a good 3 meters tall, and sticks its elk skull head with antlers, straight up, then lowers it and looks around till our eyes meet in my mind. I had the same like voice on my left going, "Run! Just leave!" My mind was screaming at me to leave. It was then that I realized this is the thing, talking to me and checking me out. I've noticed it. I kill something in those woods and don't leave something for it. It comes to my property and watches me. I've caught it in the corner of my eye off in the forest, just sitting, watching me, waiting for me to do something. Ooh, wow. Well, hey, learn the ways of the natives. She warned you. All right, this next one, guess what? This one is called the woodland wendigo. Or Wendigo. This person says, I was out late one night, like I usually am. I live far from anyone or anywhere. Smack bang in the middle of the forest was more so right. It was a thunderous night. Rain pelted the road as I drove home. My house was one of those fancy logger houses in the middle of the woods sort of houses, but just a small two-story shack. The main road curved and twisted through the forest. This was a complete nightmare for me, but luckily I lived down a dirt road. The rain continued as I drove down the road. I finally reached my barbed fence. I drove into the garage. I closed the garage with my keys in my hands, and that was when I heard a screech. I just assumed it was a wild deer or a boar getting stuck in the fence. I groaned, as this was usually a pain to do. I grabbed my wire clippers and a flashlight. I headed into the direction of the screech. The screech continued for a bit. I reached the area of where the fence was, but what was odd was that this is an area where I hadn't put any fencing around. I flicked on the flashlight and shined it in front of me. There it was. Crouched on the ground was a matted, pale figure. It was eating a deer that must have been too slow. I held my breath as I saw this horrid sight. I slowly crept back. I could hear it breathing and munching away. Crack! A branch broke under my foot, with my flashlight still shining on the thing. It stopped and froze before slowly standing up and turning to me. Its body was mangled and decomposed, maggots eating away at its chest, its long, lanky arms, the deer by its antlers. Its face was what got me going. It was like a deer face, but just bone and few flesh. Maggots eating away at its face, dark, soulless eyes staring at me. I froze with fear. It stared right into my soul. It screamed at me before staring to come at me. They mean starting to come at me. I panicked and threw the wire clippers at the thing. Stuck it right in the chest. Oh my gosh. It screamed and I was out of there, running as fast as I can. Back to the house. I reached the house, locking the house and turning the lights off. I hid, panicked at what I just experienced. I peeked through the door window out into the darkness. Nothing. Ever since that night, I've never left the house around dark or ventured into the night. I bet. Wow, that's nasty. Wendigos or Wendigos, they're some nasty looking creatures. I'd never heard of such an ugly thing. I have heard of Wendigos, though. I just didn't know they look like that. Well, I have to tell you guys, thank you for listening to UFO Headline News with me, Heidi Hollis. And be sure to check out UFOHeadlineNews.com every single day. And tune in to my other weekly show, The Outlander, Fridays, 8 p.m. Central Standard Time. And, check out theoutlanderscomic.com, which is my parent.